Hey everybody, I am Karen Falkler of Falkler Wellness and Advisory, and today we have Dr. David Furth with us. David was introduced to me a few weeks ago through a friend, and we had a really interesting conversation. So I asked Dr. Furth if we could get back together and have a similar conversation just so we could bring more information to you guys. So let's take it from here.
Well, hi, nice to be here. I'm a clinical psychologist, doctor in clinical psychology, and an executive coach. So yeah, I come from the background of mental health. I worked a lot in hospitals, inpatient, outpatient. I trained doctors and students in doctorate classes. So yeah, and now I'm fully focused on working with business owners, with leaders, managers, and yeah, because of my background, this is a very important topic. So the other day that we were talking together, it was like more conversations like this need to be happening.
Absolutely. That's actually how we were, or why we were introduced, is a friend had reached out and she said, you know, these people come sometimes to the executive team and they say, I need, or to HR and they say, I need a resource, and they just get automatically kicked over to the EAP program. And, you know, we were talking about sometimes this isn't the best first step. So, what would a first good step be?
That's a great question. That's the question, right? I think the first step, there has to be ideally, yeah, what we're aiming for is that there's a system in place that we're kind of taking preemptive actions. So by the time this happens, we are educated. We are like swimming in a culture that understand that this is part of life, that this is a reality, and that has already kind of dealt with that stigma that we see. And we see it in all over the place. That stigma with mental health is something, it's a reality as well. So ideally, by the time this happens, a lot of things have been put into place so that we can kind of see what's happening as a specific thing and take each case as something unique. I don't think there's like a one thing that works for every single case. So yeah, I think once you have that in place, it's easier to say, okay, what do I have? What's going on? Who is this person? What's the best approach to what's happening? So I know it's, as I'm speaking, it sounds kind of like in generalities, but it's really because it depends on what's going on what's the situation.
Absolutely. And that was one of the things that we were talking about the other day, is how, you know, sometimes people don't want to ask for help because they don't want the stigma, or they don't want it to seem like they can't do their job, or that it's too much. And so it's kind of this double-edged sword. You know, but one of the things that you had talked about is proactive ways to, you know, kind of preventive and preemptively help our staff. And that was one of the reasons that we connected, was because, you know, I'm always talking about enhancing our physical wellness, enhancing our mental wellness, kind of because they're connected. Our physical wellness impacts mental and vice versa. So what has your experience been, or have you seen positive associations when people start to become more physically active, and how that influences their mental health as it pertains to maybe depression, generalized anxiety disorder, or other conditions?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that's pretty clear right now. Like the physical health, it's all connected. Right? Like when we're talking about mental health, we think about the mind and the brain. It's part of the body, so it's all connected. So, and again, even when I was like hearing the question, if someone doesn't want to ask because there might be a stigma or they don't know the reaction, sometimes it's even like taking a step back, and it's about maybe they don't even know what's going on because they haven't been educated about that. It's something that has not been, it's information that has not been given to them. So I think the education, it's the first step, is the most important step. Part of that information and that education that we should be passing, or it would be great that we start passing, And in many ways, it's already happening. Yeah, I think we're moving forward in many ways. It's the body. What are you eating? Are you exercising? How's your sleep? Um, uh, Everything that has to do with the body and the mind, it's very connected. So yeah, kind of educating, yeah, like so that people can know this in advance, and even to learn to recognize your body, like something's off, having that awareness that something changed. I feel that because many times the problem is not being able to identify what's going on. Like I feel I don't even know how to put words into what I'm feeling, or but it just feels off. I'm not as happy, or I'm not enjoying so much, or people are reacting differently sudden to me, and I don't know if it's something that I'm doing or. Uh, so again, it's that education that is going to give you the tools to be able to recognize, okay, if something's happening, what might that be, and what can I do about it?
Absolutely. And I know that for a lot of people, they're experiencing stress or feelings of being overwhelmed or things like this. And basically their stressors are presently outweighing some of their coping mechanisms. And this is speaking less to the clinically diagnosable, like, schizophrenia and bipolar and things like that. But, as it pertains to, the majority of people that, are being referred to EAP programs or coming to HR for concerns, what would you say, or are there any like general things that you would say would be a good first step for individuals to do?
I think again, it's on a very case by case basis. I think the person who is dealing with this case, quote unquote, needs to first listen. Yeah, I think that the part of listening and understanding what's happening, how it looks for that person, because also we can say there's anxiety. Well, but the anxiety for you might look very different than anxiety for me, and there are certain tools that might work for you, but that maybe don't work for me. Maybe you've been dealing with anxiety for a really long time, so you have a lot of understanding of what's anxiety, and the other person doesn't even know what's happening. I'm just running out of breath, and I don't know. I don't really know how to explain what's going on. So I think a huge part of this is, well, normalizing, yeah, kind of educating so we can understand what are we talking about, and then based on what we're seeing, then we can think about, okay, what are the best steps for this specific case, right? There might be a case where it's just having the conversation, being able to talk to someone and just getting it out of your system, and someone that doesn't judge you and kind of gets it, and tells you this happens, it's not just you. That might be a huge part of what brings relief. Sometimes it might be being able to take a few days out of work, taking a leave, and then even if that's the case, what can we do to maximize those days, right? So that the effectiveness of that leave is maximized. Then we can think in terms of, if we have a leave, then what happens when we return, right? There also has to be a system to say, okay, you're coming back. That first day might be difficult because you might feel like there's a lot on the line. Again, it's so specific to the case and to the company and to the culture. And we were talking a little bit about this also the other day, about like what country are we in, what city are we in. Like culture is also a very big part of this. But I think, like, if you want to take it to simple terms, to the core, is listening, understanding, and obviously also having a structure and having someone who knows how to, that has been educated and knows how to deal with this, to react to this type of thing.
Absolutely. And that's a really good point, because not only do we have to, our emotional intelligence, like we have to take care of ourselves so that we can show up, so that we can have earlier detection of when somebody may be off, because sometimes they're so deep in the weeds that they don't even know it and recognize it themselves. So it's setting the example as a leader hey, we have to show up and take care of ourselves, and hey, it's okay to, go to the doctor. And to your point, I mean, that is a huge barrier to wellness for some people. So sometimes it's, barriers to getting to a clinician, so say they, do take the action to go get, therapy, but sometimes there's really long wait lists to get in, or sometimes they're afraid of the copays, or they're working 2 jobs. And so they can't, take that time. And so are there any, looking out into the future, if you had a magic wand, what would you do different, or what would you do as a first step?
As a leader, or talking to what can I do?
Like
What's the
to
situation?
gain access, like to help individuals who recognize, so their leader has recognized there's something, the individual has recognized something, but like as a whole, as the society, learning to ask for help, I'm sure, and to offer help proactively. But like, what else can we do to help remove some of the barriers to wellness, and make it easier for people maybe to access right services?
Yeah, I mean, that's it's a good question. It's a complicated question because it's a big question. We're talking about like the whole system, right? That it's in place. I remember when I was working in hospitals where you have these big systems. Everyone who works there, or like a very big percentage of the people that are working there, they started that profession because they wanted to help, they wanted to make a difference. And then when you're there and you're hit with a system that it's complicated, that has a lot of moving pieces, that has different motivations depending on the department, things get stuck. So when we're talking about like system wise, it's I think that's a bigger conversation. I think what I would say is trying to figure out what's within our control. Like, what can I do? Yeah, the system is very complicated, and I might not be able to change it from where I'm at least not immediately, unless I have that magic wand. I know you said that. But coming back to reality, where I don't have that magic wand, it's basically, okay, so what is within my control? What can I do? And really focusing there. And again, I know I'm talking a lot about education, but I think this is just such an important point. But that's something that is within my control. I can educate myself. I can also try to educate those who are open for this information. And then there are. I mean, there's a lot of things. Yeah, it's a charged question, but I think seeing the humanity, I mean, connecting with the humanity, many times, especially when we're in business and the work environment, and we're thinking a lot about numbers, it can happen that we forget that we are all humans in a system trying to achieve certain goals. But that part of that, of being a human, is that sometimes we struggle. And we have different ways of struggling. And for some struggles, society has created like a diagnosis and a name, and there are like standard, not solutions, but steps to face these things. And sometimes it's not that clear, and sometimes it's a mixture of different things. So especially, and I know I'm not, I don't know if I'm answering exactly the question, but thinking about like the leaders who are, if you're the leader, people are looking to you, you're creating the culture. It's very important what stand you're taking. To be able to not forget that, to be able to be aware that, okay, I have a human being who is struggling. It's true, I have certain numbers that I have to meet. There's an objective for this whole operation. We're not here just to connect as human beings. There's a different purpose right now taking place. But at the same time, if I can connect with that human being and help that human being, it goes in it's going to be advantageous for that mission, to that project. Because that's,
Well, and that, I mean, and that's where I really appreciate, like, the conversation that we had, because you and I are both, we're doing the same thing. And that is, how can we help leaders and teams and organizations, be the best that they can. And, for me, it's like, for you, you're doing it, your way. For me, it's like the physical wellness, the mental wellness, and then working on the communication,
Yeah.
and then just kind of the way that we're navigating time. I want to ask, one more question that I have is, we see the statistics out there in terms of the percentage of people that have, are living with, a mental illness or mental health condition. What percentage of the population do you really think is struggling either with it themselves or living with somebody who has a mental health condition?
I mean, honestly, I don't have a number to give. I think that there are statistics out there. I think depends also, again, in the country, the city, the culture, and how you characterize or analyze or name whatever we are talking about. I just think it's important to acknowledge that struggle, it's part of the human condition. I mean, the idea of us struggling, then it can be through, like, again, I'm giving names that are like they're good for us to communicate, but anxiety, depression, and there's panic attacks, there's addictions, there's substance abuse, there's many names that we can give to this. But I think what can connect all of us and make it easier for us to start having a conversation and understanding each other, it's struggle. It's struggle. It's true that some of these have a more chemical, biological component or genetic component. Others might be more, they might start or be triggered in different ways. So it's not like we're saying like they're all the same, the struggles are all the same, and we should address everything the same way. But I think it's important, in order to begin the conversation from a right place, to be able to empathize in terms of, this is struggle. This is what it is. We're human beings. We've been struggling since we're human beings. And I think that connection is a very good one to either help or to ask for help. Like, if we can really connect to that concept, it's much easier to engage this.
And I said it was my last question, but I thought of one more. So one of the other conversations I have is around proactive ways to reduce risk for suicide. And that's, through all the things that we kind of just spoke about. Are there any things in particular that you think that CEOs can do to reduce risk for suicide in their organizations, in addition to, recognizing them as an individual, having conversations with them, but like, is there anything that people maybe have not thought of that you could make as a recommendation or a consideration? Obviously, we're not making medical recommendations to people you've never met, but in general.
Yeah. And it's a good question. I mean, and again, like all these topics, all these questions, we could discuss for a long time because they're complex. We're trying to simplify something in a really short time, but there's a balance here, right? Between it's not the leadership responsibility. Like, at the end of the day, is the individual who makes this decision. Sometimes it's hard to even say it's a decision, but sometimes it's clearly a decision. So even if that conversation can be complicated as well. So to put the responsibility on the leader of a company, I think it's much, but there are definitely things that the leader can do to create that culture where that person is able to recognize something is off, and I can express it, I can seek for help. I would say that's the main thing that a leader can do. I think there might be others for sure, is to create an environment where someone who is struggling inside and has not been able to reach out, to feel like it's a safe a safe place to reach out, or to even hear the idea that, oh, I can reach out. Because some people haven't heard that. Some people are like, no, you have to keep it in. You have to go on your own. You should never, especially at work, talk about this, right? So if you can create a culture where someone feels like I need to get this out, and I have someone, I have a channel, that might save a life for sure, for sure.
Oh, thank you so much. Is there anything
Yeah.
else that you would like to add or talk about while we're here?
No, I mean, I appreciate the space and the work that you're doing. I think this is a type of thing where it's we need to keep spreading the message and keep going in this direction until I don't know if there's an until really, but just keep moving forward. You know, this is it's very important. I think that if we can win this battle, it's good for business, it's good for the society, it's good for everyone. It's really something that us human beings need to understand and learn how to deal with our humanity better as a society, as a group, and as individuals, as leaders in so many aspects. So I think this is well, I'm very passionate, obviously, about this.
Yeah.
All these topics, yeah. But I think it's very important, and also to be fair, I think we've gone a long way. I mean, we're moving forward. We're not where we used to be.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I am so grateful for your time. I'm so grateful that we met, and I look forward to working together in the future. And and I'd like to echo what you were saying, and that's just we're so much stronger together, and I really appreciate the work that you're doing each and every day. Yeah, and I look forward to all the fun, cool conversations to come. So thank you so much. And where can watchers or listeners follow you or learn more about your background if they'd like to?
I would say at drfurth.com. I'm not very active on social media. Maybe that's something that is in my future, but at this point, is drfurth.com. So yeah, that's where they can find.
Well,
Karen, thank you very much. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.